evening, everybody. Welcome in here. It's great to see you. I hope your week's going very well. We're taking a pause and opening up our Bibles and see if we can get a little pick-me-up for the rest of the week. Looking forward to doing this together. I don't know if any of you are worry-warts. Have any? Well, I know you are, but no. We have any worry-warts among us? No. It's hard to say. Worry-warts among us. We all struggle with it, don't we? And some more than others, and undoubtedly. We get bogged down and we think, oh no, all the bad things that could happen, and a number of bad things that have happened and that are probably going to get way worse, or could anyway. And so then we worry about those things, and then, Heath, we get to worrying if we're worrying about our worries. That we do. We just over-worry about things. So I think we can all benefit to this. I know we can to a certain degree. And like I said, some like myself, maybe even more than others. I think it can help by looking at worry from a different angle. I came across this, see what you think about it. Worrying, it's like telling God you don't think He can handle it. That's really true, isn't it? Think about it. Who's in control? Oh, we say, oh, God's in control. Okay. Oh, and then this though, and then, okay, wait a minute. Who's in control? God. But, okay. But if God's in control, and you and I, we have our trust in God, why are we worrying about things? Will He not take care of it? Will it not work out? It may not be exactly the way we drew it up, but will it not work out in what is ultimately best for Him and His kingdom? And when we're a part of that kingdom, I'm going to guess probably the best for ourselves too by the time it's all said and done, even though we might not see the whole picture right now. So let's look at this section of worrying together that Jesus is going to teach us in this practical section of the Gospel according to Luke in the 12th chapter. Yes, sir. Yeah. Yeah, and in the time of the disciples' faith is going to be shaken the most, speaking of John, the 14th chapter, when he's saying bye for a while, and he's telling them that, I'm leaving, and I'm going to my Father's house, and it's like, I'm leaving the earth, you understand? It's like, I'm going to die. And they're just so distraught, and they're crying, and then they're so tired from their sorrow, they can't stay awake when they need to be focusing and praying and visiting with Jesus. But it's the toughest hour for them, and what does Jesus tell them? Let not your heart be troubled. Now, if you let your heart be troubled, what are you struggling with? The very subject that's on our minds tonight, worry. John 14. So how can we deal better with this? But from Luke 12, and that's a good passage to bring up. Thank you for that, Roy. Luke chapter 12, verse 22. Then He said to His disciples, therefore, and let's not forget what therefore is. That is an adverb, which means consequently or understanding this. The only problem is we dropped off from somewhere that we were understanding something. What have we just understood from the previous verses in Luke 12? Namely, 13 through 21. What have we just understood? Jesus has just reminded us one's life does not consist in what? Things, materialism, physicality, generally speaking. Materialism, we would say. Monetary matters. None of those things. It doesn't consist, it's not made up. It doesn't mean that it's bad or wrong to have those things. It doesn't mean it's bad or wrong not to have those things or anywhere between. It's about how we look at them, how we prize them, how we chase after them, regardless of whether we have them or not, right? Okay, so therefore, consequently, understanding this discussion we've just had, Jesus said to His disciples, therefore I say to you, do not worry. There's not a period. I read it like there's a period. But He continues, do not worry. Okay, like, what do you have in mind? Well, He continues, do not worry about your life. That's pretty encompassing right there, isn't it? What are some life things about which we can worry that He doesn't just specifically hit on the head right here? So that's kind of one thing right there. Do not worry about your life. What gets you out of skelter or could threaten to do so? Maybe it doesn't. Maybe it just ruffles your feathers a little bit. I don't have many feathers to ruffle, but I get ruffled still. What do you think? You didn't have to agree with that, Nick. You should be like, no, that's not the case at all. What? Okay? Okay. Yeah. Okay, that's true. What else that isn't specifically mentioned? And good, hang on to it. How about job things? Stress. Stress at work. Or things that can come from work. Just getting bills paid. What else might stress or bother you any? Your health. Good. I had that exact thought also. Well, what if I get this? Or what if my spouse gets this? Or what if my kid has to go through that? What if my spouse, kid, parent, grandparent, grandchild already is going through one of these things, and this is a potential prospect from that? That's enough to stress somebody out. Okay, so do not worry about your life. It's easy to say, man. That's hard to do, though. Yeah. Yeah, excellent. Thank you. Very good exposition, Roy. And that happens so many times in Scripture. We dealt with, what was it, back in the Beelzebub passage, if I'm not mistaken. But Jesus talking about the importance of getting rid of the evil spirits, in a person or evil influences. And it's important, though, that evil spirit to understand it's going to come back and check out its old house. It's comfortable. It likes it there. And if it finds it swept empty, Matthew says, and put in order, never got filled with anything, it's going to say, hey, there's my room's still open, and hey, 6 of my buddies, hey, come on, let's go. This is a good spot. I've been here before. And it says the latter end is worse for that man than the beginning, because even though he got rid of bad habits, he didn't replace them with good. Ephesians chapter 4, put off the old man, covetousness, lying, filthy language out of your mouth. It goes on down the line. And then it says, and don't forget to put on the new man. So you're right. God does that all the time. Get rid of the bad, but never forget to replace it with the good, because it'll never work if you don't do it. Very good. Thank you, Roy. This is another instance of that. So we're getting rid of the bad, and in this case, is getting rid of worry. Do not worry about your life circumstances, what's going on with your job, your health, your loved ones. And then Roy mentioned this one, what you will eat, nor about the body, what you will put on. We are so spoiled where we live and where we've, I think maybe all of us have always been, if not for a very long time anyway. In this land, have we ever had to worry about if we were going to get something to eat today? There may be yeah. There you go. You're exactly right. And there is a difference in our land compared to this one. This is a land with zero social mobility, where 99% of people are probably on the verge of, 99 maybe a little high, but probably at least 90, if not 95%, aren't that far away from starvation, really, in that culture, right? A place with zero social mobility. It's a dictatorship with no opportunity. We live in a land unlike any other of social mobility, that you can do anything you want to do in your life. Now, that's true of 99% of people, right? There is a small sliver that are literally unable to do that, no doubt. A lot of ours, not all of ours, a lot of ours in our country is self-inflicted, and you're right about but there is still, no doubt, some lack of opportunity. Yeah. Yeah, I'm with you, and I'm not disagreeing at all. My thing is, and I know we could go on, but in our culture, businesses are having to close their doors, and employers are having to work all the shifts because they can't find anyone willing to do any jobs. Now, that's not every business, but that's many businesses that have experienced that. And then when you have a labor force of millions and millions and millions of people who have no interest in doing it, so there is that side of it. But absolutely, I agree 100% with you that there are a number of people who are lacking opportunities and need help, no doubt about it. Yeah. And my point isn't drawing the contrast. Again, in this culture, you're not talking about the exception. You're talking about the rule. This is everyday life. People they hardly have anything to eat at all. Whereas ours, most people have things to eat and have plenty of opportunity to get things to eat even if they don't. And that's where I say, but it's still available, certainly. So yeah, I appreciate those thoughts and agree completely with what you said. But he's saying, don't worry about your life, what you will eat. And as Rebecca's pointed out to us, even in our culture, for someone who's legitimately struggling with that, that's going to be a difficult thing to hear and accept. And we've all been in positions, I know in this room, where it's more difficult at times than others. I think everybody in this room, is safe to say, has also been very blessed and taken care of by God throughout life. Nor about the body what you will put on. Again, these people, there's a difference from their time to ours. Are there people in our culture legitimately who are under-advantaged, disadvantaged, and need clothing and need help? Absolutely. In that time, if you had the clothes you're wearing and one other change of clothes, you're killing it in life. One other change, right? Do we worry about clothing? Yeah, probably not as much as adults, as what we did when we were kids. When we were kids growing up, what was one of our major worries about clothing? Okay. Now, are there exceptions to this here? Absolutely. Okay, there's some people's like, I don't have a shirt to wear tomorrow. Yeah, I mean that is absolutely. That's not the norm though, is it? In our land, it's back in our time, it was American Eagle and Hollister and Abercrombie. I don't even know what it is anymore. Those are a lot of our. Well, this is totally different. These are people that the norm is they might not have a shirt to wear tomorrow, and at night it can get very cold, especially in this area. And I know it's a pretty hot and arid region. But it can also get very cold in the evenings, and especially during wintertime. And you might not have a coat to put on. And people didn't have like 17 blankets in their home. Well, I could just wrap up with that. No, it's like your coat is your blanket, and some people didn't even have that. So it'd be very difficult in this circumstance. Still does take place some, even in the richest country in the history of the world. And we need to be aware of that and be open to our opportunities to help people who are in that spot. And we need to realize that, one day it may be we ourselves who are in that spot. God never promises to us that you can take care of everything all on your own. You will always have plenty all on your own. Guarantee you that. He gives us this in His family. And remember, in the first century, there were a lot of people who didn't have what they needed. So what was the church doing? And not only to Christians, but also even to those, and it isn't discussed as often, but there are multiple times it is. And the church was commanded, Galatians 6:10, let us, as we have opportunity, do good, especially to those that are of the household of faith, but not just to those, also to all men. And we need to be aware. We're here to help each other out. I need to be aware, although I've learned I won't say this, that I will never ask for help from you. I won't say that, but I'm going to try my best to live it out to never ask you for help for anything, just because I'm too proud. I hate that, but that's the way I am, and you're probably a lot that way also, but I won't say I will never ask. There have been times I have asked for your help. I don't like it, didn't like it then, I still don't like it today, but I love you for it. And I know anything I ask you, my church family would be there, and has throughout the almost 15, I think it's 14 years now that we've been together. I hope you know and feel that about me and our family also. Anything, you ask it. If it's humanly possible, it's going to be done. We have that with each other. And I've also seen with our church many, many things, whether it's organizing for coats. It exists, right? There are legitimate needs out there when awful circumstances, families, homes have burned down, and our church families, there are people who aren't even a part of this church. The Sound House, and still a connection with that, with our small groups, feeding those who could use it, tremendous opportunities. So let's remember that we are going to have times, circumstances that come up things in our lives, maybe even we ourselves, we have concerns about food. We have concerns about clothing. God has given us this incredible family that we can lean on one another. Verse 23, don't worry about it. God will take care of it. Doesn't mean all by yourself you can do it. He has set up things in order to help address with you things that come up in your life. But keep this in mind. As important as food seems, life is more than food. It's amazing on how little of food we can actually live and that we really need. Oh, we pamper ourselves in our country. We eat big meals when we want to eat them. We struggle at times with maybe overeating a little bit at those said meals, and we get just a little hankering, and we can go find a snack that we want. We get the sweets that we want also. We get tired of drinking water, so we'll get some of our sugary drinks or just flavored waters without sugar. We're so pampered in all of these things. We plan out our meals. I do this. Do you? I go to my meat runs at the store, and I make enough food for what I want to eat in my diet for 3 and 4 days down the line. But it's funny when you get so caught up on certain days, just how life is and work or mission, whatever it is going on, and so much is taking place. And there have been many days on the same diet you've thought at 5 o'clock that you wouldn't survive until 5:15. But you'll be so busy, and there's something good, productive work going on. Maybe it's helping someone, maybe it's teaching somebody, and it's like 8:30, 9 o'clock at night, and you're like, oh yeah, I didn't eat. A lot of that's mental. It's amazing how little food we really need compared to how much we just really enjoy food. Life is more than food. God didn't put us here just to eat or to religiously worship some diet or to worship our bodies. The body is more than clothing. There were a lot of times, I could have used a few more American Eagle shirts when I was in high school. I could have used one Abercrombie or Hollister shirt. I never got one of those. But I survived. It wasn't the end of the world. But it really is. It's amazing how much we depend on clothing and just silly things that really aren't that important. When it's super cold out, it's really nice to have an extra layer. In most circumstances, it's not going to be a matter of life or death if the thickness is that much less than the other one that we could have had or could have brought with us. There really are more important things to life than food and clothing. Yes, Jonathan? The night shopping is the most dangerous. Do you guys ever find yourselves doing that? Okay, that's good. Stay strong. I've given in a little bit. But yeah, you get to thinking before bed, and it's, you're finally unwinding after a long day. Look at my Amazon cart. What did I have? Oh, they know. They know what you've been looking. They're mind readers, okay? And it'll pop up just exactly what you want, even though you don't need it. Don't buy things before you go to bed. It's like shopping for food at Walmart when you're hungry. Don't do that. That's the dumbest thing you could do. Yeah. Sure. They're very important. Right. Definitely, yeah. Without question. And the whole point behind it is that there are other things in life that are so important, things that are really important, it's like they're not important, even though they are. And so there's something else he has in mind that is so far beyond in significance that this is like these things that they're not even important at all. But they are, absolutely. We don't want to overlook that fact. Good. Verse 24, some examples. Consider the ravens, for they neither sow nor reap, which have neither storehouse nor barn. Okay, so we have our growing seasons, and we put out our gardens, and we pamper them, and we get all of our produce. Some of us even preserve through freezing and canning the produce that comes in. What if we didn't do that? Well, consider the ravens. They don't plant gardens. They don't reap gardens. They don't plant trees. reap trees. They don't have storehouse or barn. Well, we think, well, we got to have a cellar or we're not going to survive the winter. And God still feeds them. Of how much more value are you than the birds? How important do you really think a bird is? And I'm just talking, it's not like a peacock, okay? That's pretty important. But like a tiny bird that's super common, you see all the time. How important are they? And yet God considers them so important. He does not let them go without. He makes sure they always have food. And they have enough clothing, enough exterior to be able to make it through the winter. And of course there's migration that's used with that also. Verse 25, and which of you by worrying can add 1 cubit to his stature? That's roughly 1.5 feet. You ever had any concerns about your height? Man, I did growing up. I'm still not like a tall person, but I'm pretty average in height. I was always so short. And finally, sophomore, junior year, I kind of shot up. Skinny as can be, but I at least got taller, Man, that bothers you. And I did it. I thought about that, and if I could just grow 6 inches, and it never helped me out at all that worrying. Eventually, God helped me to grow. Wasn't when I wanted, but we can't change. That's the point. There's some things that we're not going to be able to change. What in the world does it matter if we're 5'6" or 5'9" or 5'2" or 6'4" or 7"? I mean, really, does it matter when it's all said and done? Verse 26, if you are then not able to do the least, why are you anxious for the rest? Something as small as just a tiny little physical thing about you, if you just worry so hard, it wouldn't change anything. So what about bigger things? If you can't change a little tiny thing like that, why do you think worrying is going to change the big things? It's not productive. And it's a choice that we can make. We can turn it on, or we can turn it off. Now, I don't believe, and I know you'll see this some about anxiety, and we're not talking about a disorder or anything like that here. We're just talking about just everyday common living and common worrying. We can either choose to worry, or we can choose to get that out of the way and instead put something in its place, put our trust in God. And say, you know what? I know God's in control, and anything that concerns me, I'm going to do what He says. I'm going to talk to Him about it, and then I'm going to trust Him that it's going to be exactly the way it ought to be. And I'm going to trust that He takes care of me just like He takes care of menial creatures in this place. Consider the lilies, 27, how they grow. They neither toil, that's work, nor spin. I'm going to guess this probably has to do with weaving to make clothing, or it could be sometimes, it takes a little work to get into our clothing. Maybe something, so maybe something like that. So they don't work, and they don't make their clothes. They don't have to wiggle, to get into their clothes. And yet I say to you, the most beautifully clothed people in this land, someone like Solomon, maybe the richest guy who ever lived, certainly up there if he's not, he could wear anything he wanted. No, he had beautiful garments to wear. Yet even Solomon in all his glory didn't look as beautiful as one of the flowers of the field that doesn't work for the clothing and doesn't make the clothing, doesn't wiggle to put on any clothing. Isn't that something? It's almost like God takes care of His creation, Now, of how much value do you think of a lily in a field, or maybe for us, a single rose? What value is that really? And if God puts that much value on a little thing that is piddly and means nothing in the grand scheme of things, we who mean everything to Him, do you think He might make sure that we're clothed as we should be? 28, if then God so clothes the grass, which today is in the field and tomorrow is thrown into the oven, back in this time, whatever's left over from that's going to be used as fuel to start fires. So if God clothes the grass of the field today in that way, and tomorrow He just throws it into the oven, of how much more or better will He clothe you? Oh, you of little faith. See, if we're worrying, it's a problem we don't have enough good things, Roy, within us, like trust in God, confidence in Him. And if we don't have that, then we're going to have the opposite of that. which is worry, a concern, and we're not sure that he is going to take care of us. 29, and do not seek what you should eat or what you should drink, nor have an anxious mind. Choose not to think that way. Choose not to distrust. Verse 30, for all these things the nations of the world seek after, and your Father knows that you need all these things. Does it ever bother you? And I don't want to take the focus off of us and the improvement we need. But that being said, just a little deviation right here. Does it ever bother you, people who don't have God in their lives, friends, maybe coworkers, neighbors, and when they just don't have some certain certainties within them? Just very common things. And this is one right here. It does bother me if I felt like I didn't know for certain that whatever I need was going to be taken care of. If I felt like I didn't know for sure that my wife and my kids wouldn't always be taken care of, oh man, that would bother me so badly. And I hate it when people on the outside don't have that same confidence. And I want them to have it, but that's what Jesus is saying right here. You're different. Understand, God loves all of His creation, so let's not forget about that. But you're different. You're His family. And you see the relationship there? Your Father. And when you're a child of a good Father, you know that your Father is going to do everything He possibly can, always to take care of your every need. And do you remember what it's like? We're all old enough in here, most of us. We're all old enough in here, we can look back, and do you recall, I hope everyone can say, I had a good father, and I know probably not everyone will be able to. But for all who did, or at least a good father figure, hopefully, in your life, there is a level of comfort there. And you always feel safe when you're with Dad. And you always know He's going to look out for me, and He's always going to, provide all of these things. And that was a dad that loved us, okay? And again, it may not be everybody. I hope that it is. But a dad that loved us very much, but just lacked the ability to do certain things. And yet we had all the trust in the world in that person. Now, consider who He is. He's our Father also, but He can do everything. Our dads, as much as they loved us and tried to give us the world, they were probably pretty limited in their funds. He is the richest being in existence. And to understand the power that He has, the love that He has, and the means that He has, that alone should erase any concern for anything regarding our futures. Yes, sir?
Saying this is what unbelievers we are from that standpoint.
Yeah. Excellent, Brad. And I think that goes back to as well. It's a growth thing, right? Relationship is something that's built over time, and it's based upon trust. And over time, the more we learn about God and the more our relationship grows, the more we realize we can trust and depend on Him. So hopefully every day that goes by, that doesn't mean that as soon as we're baptized, it's going to be this full trust that should. I mean, that's great if it works out that way, but that's probably a pretty mature new believer if that's the case. But yeah, it should absolutely, Brad, it should grow to that point. And but anyway, yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry. Excellent. Yeah, definitely so. And like you said at the end of the parable, of the previous parable, that is verse 21, so as he lays up treasure for himself and is not rich toward God, it starts with God, showing our dependence on Him monetarily. Look, we can give this away. We can give, whatever away. We know You'll take care of us. We're not going to outgive You. Yeah. And that's following the example of the master, isn't it? As a servant. There are people who are hungry for salvation. What does He do? He gives them bread to eat. And then He teaches them the most wonderful thing He could ever tell them about the bread of life. So, yeah, you're exactly right. Thank you. All right, so verse 30, after these things, all these things, the nations of the world seek after, and that's what Brad was pointing out. And your Father knows that you need all these things, that it's different with unbelievers. With believers, the very definition of believing is you have your trust in something. In our case, it's someone. And so we have our trust in Him, and so that's why we're different, even in the way we think and about anxieties that we experience, worries that we could potentially have. So we want to get rid of that, Roy. In verse 31, what do we implement? But seek the kingdom of God, and all these things shall be added to you. Now that's in the case if we don't have them, right? Or if we're just wanting them, the basic needs of life. There are things that are more important, even more important, than what we eat, what we drink, and what we put on, as vital as those are, because those are only vital for physical survival. And it really doesn't matter how long we survive physically. Best case scenario, if the whole time frame of this existence were this, best case scenario, we're going to physically survive that much of it. It doesn't matter if it's 100 years, 120 years, 6 years, 12 years, it's not going to be very long. Doesn't matter even if it's 120 years. It won't be long. But there is one thing that matters, and that's our spiritual survival. And that's going to matter not just for this, but for this. It will never stop mattering. Yes. You fool. So true, Rebecca. You fool. You were so focused on this that you missed out on this. Isn't that sad if we were to focus on that? Physical things. Are they important? Do they matter? Absolutely. Are they the most important things? No. And in fact, there are other things that are so much more important that it's like those super important things aren't important at all, even though they are. But it's like they're not. Did you? Oh, I thought you were. No. Okay. So let's finish this section. Verse 32. Do not fear. Okay, something that's closely associated with worry. Being afraid. Don't be afraid. What's the opposite of fear? Trust. Faith. So we can either make a choice. I'm going to be afraid, or I'm going to be full of faith. Either I'm going to put my complete confidence in God, or I'm going to say, I'm really not sure what He can or will do. And that's the choice that we have to make, and it's really that simple. Do not fear, little flock. All right, that's another example. It's kind of like the father, a good father, with his children. Jesus would call it the good shepherd with his sheep. What is the good shepherd? We don't see this a lot, but we know it from Bible teaching and their culture and a little bit around us. What does a good shepherd do for his flock? He cares for them, which involves feeding them. They never have to go hungry, do they? Because He always takes care of them. That doesn't mean they're always going to be in the same 2-acre field, right? They might get moved. They might be led around. And it might not be that they're just eating the food off of the ground. It might be that there are new ways to feed them. It might be that food has to get hauled in during time of famine and drought. But they're always going to have food to eat. They're always going to have water. They're always going to be looked after and protected. And did you say something else? Yeah, it's everything. It is. Yeah. And we're building up to that point. So they would be willing to do anything to the degree of what for those sheep? The good shepherd is, look, if it's my sheep or me, it's me all day long. I would gladly die before anything would happen to those sheep. So do you realize what Jesus says here when He states, do not fear, little flock. I look at you as my little lambs. I'm the good shepherd. What would He be willing to do for us? Verse 33. So this is building up to it. We've learned we don't want to be like the rich fool and focus on this and miss this. Bless you. We want to be rich toward God, number one. And number two, this. Sell what you have and give alms. Provide yourselves money bags which do not grow old, a treasure in the heavens that does not fail, where no thief approaches nor moth destroys. And I know we are out of time. As Rebecca mentioned, we can't talk about each sliver as much as we would want to. I'd love to read if we had the time, from 1 Timothy 6, if you're interested. I know you're familiar with it. 1 Timothy 6, 17 through 19. This is not intended to be, you have to give away or sell everything that you have to be a follower of God. Because there it's stated, command those who are rich in this present age. Here's a way to handle the blessings that you've been given, okay? But it is this, and think about it this way. If God asked you tonight, would you be willing to give away every dollar that you have? If God told you tonight to liquidate every asset and give it all to the church or give it all to needy people in the community, would you be willing to get rid of every one of the assets that belongs to you right now? Now, you don't have to answer that out loud, but just think about that. And here's the point. Would we be like the rich fool and say, oh, but then I wouldn't have, well, then what would I do to, hold on. And then to recognize, where is our trust found? Would we trust in God to still take care of us if we didn't have any of it left, all the blessings He shared with us through these years? Last one is this: for where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. Where are our hearts found? So that takes us through this section of verse 34. You're right, Roy. I'm with you, but we will finish it, the good Lord willing, next time, chapter 12. And yes, I believe so. I'm trying the best I can. Yeah, so we should finish it. Let's go ahead and keep verse 48. It's a good one, and we will have that when we get there. Okay, anything else? Thanks for the comments that were brought out in the discussion. Okay, thanks.